Hello, everybody. Welcome to one more exciting session in AWS Bootcamp series. In this particular session, we will learn about AWS S3 storage classes and we'll understand what is the difference between each storage class, and we'll also understand a couple of terms like durability and availability. Now, let us start with different types of storage classes. AWS have seven different types of storage classes named as AWS S3 Standard General Purpose, S3 Standard Infrequent Access, S3 One Zone Infrequent Access, AWS S3 Glacier Instant Retrieval, Glacier Flexible Retrieval, and Glacier Deep Archive. And we have one more special type of storage class which is called as AWS S3 Intelligent Tiering. Now we will discuss about all the storage classes in detail. Before we discuss that, we need to understand two terms. One is called as durability. The second is called as availability. Let us discuss about what is durability, what is availability. Then it will be very easy for us to understand why we need different storage classes and which storage class is used for what kind of business use case. Now, what is durability? Now, durability means this is basically the quality of being able to last for a long time without being damaged. Now, let's say if you put one object to S3, how long you'll be able to store that particular file. Now, AWS says any object that is stored on AWS bucket, it is 99.9 times 9 durable. That means basically once out of 10 out of 1 lakh files, out of 10,000 years, there is chance of just losing one file. That is the durability that AWS offers. So basically durability means how long you can store your object. So you can basically store it for very long. And now availability. So durability means your object would be there for very long time. So availability is basically like how ready is your service whenever you're trying to access that. Is it ready for accessible or not? Now the accessibility service levels will vary on the type of storage class that we take. Now, for example, if I put an object and if I choose AWS S3 standard as the storage class, AWS gives 99.99% availability. That means in complete 1 year, there is a chance that it will not be available for 53 minutes. Okay, just that's it. That is what the service levels that AWS agrees with. Now, let's say in one storage bucket, can I put multiple files? Yes. And every file can have a different storage class that we have mentioned here? Yes. So that means different objects can have different storage classes. All right. Now we understood what is durability, what is availability. Now let us discuss each of the storage class separately. Now first let's start with Amazon S3 standard general purpose. Now AWS gives 99.99% 99.99% availability. That means as we discussed, it is highly available. There are only chances that it will not be available for 53 minutes. Now if you choose this storage class, even one facility fails, even two facilities fails, your data will be still available, and you choose this kind of storage class to have high performance and high availability. Now use cases for this could be like for example, it could be for any public websites, or if you want to capture any log from any service, if you want to store any configuration files, or if you store data that is related to big data. For any of these use cases, you can use a storage class on AWS S3, which is called as S3 standard general purpose. For all types of purpose, you can use this storage class. Now, what is S3? Now, that is about the standard class. Now, there is another type of storage class, the second one, which is called as Amazon S3 standard infrequent access. Now, what is the difference between the first one, standard class, and what is the difference between infrequent access? All right. The difference is that both act incredibly same, but only difference is that the cost is less in S3 standard infrequent access when you compare with the standard general purpose class. Now, this is basically used for majorly for backups because the cost for GB to store the file for backups is less when in the standard infrequent access. Okay, or else rest all would be same. So the major use case for anybody to use this storage class, if you want to back up the data, you can use S3 standard infrequent access. And now the third storage class is called as Amazon S3 one zone infrequent access. AWS gives for this also 99.9% availability, and the use cases would be majorly for disaster recovery and backup, because you don't access this data that frequently, right? So if you don't access that data very frequently, and if you want to just store that on one zone, basically you can use that as S3 one zone infrequent access. In this storage class, the availability is sacrificed, but still AWS advertises it as 99.99 because on S3 one zone 1A stores data in only single AWS availability zone. Okay, now the data stored in this storage class will be lost in the event of availability zone destruction. If there is any failure of the AZ, you will be losing your data. All right, that is what is the use of Amazon S3 one zone infrequent access, majorly used for disaster recovery and backup. In Amazon S3 Glacier instant retrieval. Now, basically, Glacier is one storage class. There are multiple options in Glacier. Okay, there are three options. We will look into that. Now, let us say the first one, Amazon Glacier instant retrieval. Now, this Glacier storage class, irrespective of whether it is instant retrieval or flexible retrieval, the cost of storing data in Glacier storage class is very less. Okay, but you'll also be charged for object retrieval cost. Okay, in a Glacier there are two types of charges. One is price of the storage plus price of the storage plus object object retrieval cost. Okay, and now Amazon Glacier instant retrieval. Okay, this is used to store the data for long term backups and for archival. And the minimum duration here is 90 days. And it is great for millisecond retrieval. So, whenever you want to retrieve the data, you can access that in milliseconds. That is a use of a storage class that is called as Amazon Glacier instant retrieval. Now, the next one is flexible retrieval. Now, in the Glacier, there is one more class which is called as Amazon S3 Glacier flexible retrieval. In this type of storage class, now flexible retrieval means basically it is not like so in the Amazon Glacier instant retrieval, if you're archiving the data or backing up the data, you can retrieve that in milliseconds. Okay, but I'm very flexible that I can wait. In flexible retrieval also, if you want to retrieve the data in minutes, you can expedite. We call the tags expedited. If you can wait for 3 to 5 hours, okay, and you can if it is bulk, you can wait for up to 5 to 12 hours. So you're flexible enough for the data to be retrieved. So in this, what happens? The object retrieval cost is basically free. So if you see in the instant retrieval, there is a cost for object retrieval and price for storage. But in the flexible, the object retrieval is free of cost because you're flexible enough to wait. And this also requires a minimum duration of 90 days to store your data. That is called as that is a storage class Amazon S3 Glacier flexible retrieval. And we have one more kind of storage class under Glacier, which is called as Amazon Glacier Deep Archive. So this Glacier Deep Archives storage class is basically used for long-term storage, and standard retrieval time is basically about 12 hours. And if it is a bulk data retrieval, it would be about anywhere around 48 hours. Okay, that is a retrieval time in a deep archive. And the minimum amount of time that you have to store the data is for about 180 days. Okay, that is basically about Glacier Deep Archive. So under Glacier, you have three types. One is instant retrieval, flexible retrieval, and deep archive. So instant retrieval, you will have the price for storage and object retrieval cost. Minimum duration is 90 days, and you can retrieve the data in milliseconds. Whereas flexible retrieval, you have to wait either in minutes or hours for standard or bulk retrieval, and minimum storage date time is for about 90 days. Okay, and the Glacier Deep Archive is for basically for long time storage. And if you want to retrieve the data standard, you have to wait about 12 hours or about 48 hours if it is bulk data, and minimum storage duration is about 180 days. So these are about different types of storage classes that are available, which is standard general purpose, standard infrequent, standard one zone infrequent. That means all your data is stored in one availability zone only, in standard one zone infrequent access. And you have Glacier infrequent retrieval, Glacier instant retrieval, Glacier flexible retrieval, Glacier deep archive, and S3 intelligent tiering. All right. Now, apart from this, there is also one more type of tiering which is called as one more type of storage class which is called as Amazon S3 intelligent tiering. This is little bit different from all other storage classes that we have discussed till now. In this kind of storage class, it basically has a small monthly monitoring fee. And one specialty about this intelligent tiering is that it automatically moves the objects from one tier to another tier based on how frequently that particular object is accessed. Okay, and there are no retrieval charges. Now let us say if you enable intelligent tiering for any object on S3, what happens? By default, it will put that on a frequent access tier. Now let's say if that object is not accessed for 30 days, that is put into infrequent access. And again, if that object is not accessed for 90 days, that will move to Glacier instant retrieval. And if the object is not accessed after till 90 days, I mean till 700 days, or let's say 1000 days, okay, then it puts under Glacier flexible. And beyond that, if the object is not accessed, that object is put in something called as uh, deep archive, and that is optional. You can either choose Glacier flexible retrieval or deep archival retrieval based on however we want to configure. Okay, these are the different options that are available for intelligent tiering. Only thing is that all other storage classes we have to manually configure. Okay, saying that which object has to be part of which storage class. But in an intelligent tiering, Based on the utilization of that particular object, the object will be moved to different tiers. That is what a S3 intelligent tiering is. Now let us compare all the storage classes that we have. Now if you see S3 standard, all the storage classes, the durability is basically 99.9 times. So that means you put data in any kind of storage class, the durability is very high, and the availability is 99.99 99.99 in standard S3, and rest S3 intelligent tier and 1A is about 99.9%, and S3 one zone it is 99.5 because data is stored in only one availability zone. And again Glacier is 99.9, Glacier Flexible and Glacier Deep Archive, the availability is 99.9%. Okay, and this data is stored basically in, if you look into all the S3, it is stored in more than three availability zones. Only zone 1A is stored in one, and rest all more than three availability zones. So even failure of two facilities, the data will be available. Okay, and there is a minimum capacity for S3 intelligent tiering and standard. There is no need of any minimum capacity. Others, there's a minimum of 128 KB file should be there, and 40 KB for Glacier and Deep Archive. There is a minimum storage duration, as I was telling you. For standard S3 and intelligent storing, there is no minimum duration, but rest others there is 30 days, 90 days, and 180 days respectively, as we have discussed. And there is a retrieval charges per GB data that is retrieved. There is a charge, and based on what kind of storage class that you select, the retrieval cost would be there. And data is accessed in milliseconds, except for Glacier. Glacier flexible retrieval, where there is 4 hours or 5 hours, depends on minutes or hours, and all the data it is stored is basically, it is an object kind of storage, right? And the life cycle transitions, we can configure life cycle for all the storage classes. We'll configure life cycle in a bit. That is the difference between different storage classes that is available on AWS S3. Now let us go ahead and create, let us do two things. One, one will manually will manually assign a storage class to an object. Second, let's configure life cycle management. Okay, life cycle management means, let's say data is there in standard. After 90 days, I want to put it in another tier. After some time, I want to put it in another tier. So we'll configure that. Let me switch back to my AWS console. This is my AWS console, and I have two buckets here. Now let me open this bucket, and first of all, let us see, there are a couple of objects in this bucket. Let me select one object and see what is the storage class for this object. Let's go to exercise 1, and if I scroll down, we'll be able to see the storage class. You see, the storage class is standard. This is default. Now I want to change the storage class for this. Let's go edit. Okay, you see, we can see all the options that we have discussed: standard, intelligent tiering, standard 1A, one zone 1A, Glacier instant retrieval, Glacier flexible retrieval, Glacier deep archive, and reduced redundancy. These are the different options that are available. Now let us say I want to move this to standard to intelligent tiering. Okay, I have selected the option to intelligent tiering, and save changes. Now you see the storage class has been successfully edited. Now let me go to this bucket. In this, the storage class for this is for this object S3 exercise 1. For this object, the storage class is intelligent tiering, right? Now let us look for other object. What is the storage class? Let me open this and let's scroll down and see the storage class. It is standard. That means in one bucket, every object can have a different storage class. All right. Now it is very difficult, right? For every object, if we have to configure a storage class manually, it is very difficult. Then AWS has given an option for us to configure a life cycle to move the objects from one tier to another tier or from one storage class to another storage class. Now, if I go into management, there's an option called as create a life cycle rule. Now, I'm selecting this option called as create a life cycle rule. Okay, it is asking us to enter the name of the rule. I'll say demo rule. Okay. Once you enter the name of the rule, it is asking whether this rule has to be applied for all the objects in the bucket or only some limited files by using some filters. Now I will choose the option which says apply to all the objects, and I acknowledge that I know that this rule will be applied to all the objects on the bucket. We have the lifecycle rule actions here. Let us say I'm selecting the option move current versions of objects between storage classes. Now, if I uncheck this button, if I scroll down, there's an option which says choose storage class transitions. Okay. Now, in this, I want to store, if you drop down, you'll see all the storage classes here. Now, I want to move that to standard SA, let's say after 30 days. Any object coming to the bucket, after 30 days, it has to move to standard 1. And then I want to add one more transition here. Let's say I want to move that to one zone 1A after, let's say, 90 days. Okay. And I want to add another transition. Let's say this object has to be flexible retrieval after, let's say, 180 days. Okay. And I want to add one more transition. It should go to deep archive, let's say, after 700 days. Okay. And then we can keep on configuring. See, after deep archival, there is no other transition, right? So it will not show anything. Okay. So you can configure how your object has to go from one storage class to another storage class. Now let's say I want to permanently delete the non-concurrent version. I can choose this and you'll get an option here, permanently delete non-concurrent version. Let's say you have to say for number of days. Okay, number of versions. All right. And you can similarly, you can also choose move concurrent version between storage classes. Now again, there will be another option which would come. You can say concurrent version for 40 days. Okay. And any number of versions that you want. All right. So you can configure this and you can see here current version actions, objects uploaded after 30 days, it will move here. After 90 days, it will move here. After 180 days, it will move here. After 700 days, it will move here. All right. And for the non-concurrent versions, these are the actions. So once we configure the actions, you can create the rule. Now this rule is basically created for this particular bucket called as level up demo. So now any object that is coming into this particular any object that is basically coming into this particular bucket, the objects would be moved between the tiers based on the life cycle that we have configured. All right, that is all about different storage classes that we have and how to configure a storage class and how to configure a lifecycle management. All right, guys, to summarize this session, we have discussed about different storage classes like standard infrequent access, standard one zone infrequent, and in Glacier, instant retrieval, flexible retrieval, and deep archive. And we have S3 intelligent steering. We understood difference between durability and availability, and we understood about all the different storage classes that we have. And we saw how to configure or change the storage class of an object manually. And we also saw how to configure a life cycle for objects in a storage bucket. Thank you very much for joining this session, guys. There'll be a document that will be shared for you guys for the lab. I request you guys to do the hands-on exercises to be more comfortable with the S3 storage classes.